It started with a slap to the coffee cup. The hot liquid splashed over the old man's trembling hand and dripped onto the wooden bench where he sat alone, as three teenage boys in oversized hoodies and smug grins laughed like it was the funniest thing they'd seen all day. "Oops," one of them said mockingly. "Didn't see your wrinkly hand there, Grandpa." The cafe went silent. Eyes flicked toward the corner where the old man sat every morning at 8:00 a.m. sharp. Locals knew him only as Mr. Lee, quiet, polite, never a word more than necessary. No one really knew where he lived or what he did. He just showed up, ordered a small black coffee, and sat outside under the tree, gazing at the street like it held secrets no one else could see. But that morning, the teens wanted trouble. "You gonna cry?" said the second boy, tall and lanky with a hoodie pulled low. "Old-timers like you belong in a nursing home, not out here pretending you still matter." The third one laughed and grabbed the old man's coffee cup, twirling it like a trophy. "What's this? No sugar, no cream. Damn, even your taste is dead." The cafe owner, Maria, rushed out from behind the counter, drying her hands on her apron. "Hey, leave him alone," she snapped, her voice shaking. "Put that cup down. He hasn't bothered anyone." But they ignored her. The first boy leaned down so close to Mr. Lee's face that their noses almost touched. "You deaf too, huh? Come on, man. Say something." "What? Cat got your dentures." That's when Mr. Lee finally moved. Not a word, just a slow, deliberate rise from the bench. His back straightened, his feet planted shoulder-width apart. For the first time, his eyes locked onto the boys. Steel gray, cold, controlled. The teenager hesitated for a moment, unnerved, but quickly masked it with a sneer. "What you gonna do? Hit me with your cane?" Mr. Lee didn't have a cane. He had balance. Perfect, calculated balance. "I asked you a question, old man," the boy said louder, puffing out his chest. That was his mistake. In a blur of motion that defied age and physics, Mr. Lee stepped forward, his left hand knocking the cup from the boy's grip, while his right hand struck the boy's chest with two sharp fingers. The teenager stumbled back, gasping for air like he'd been hit by a truck. "What the hell?" the second one shouted, lunging at Mr. Lee. Mr. Lee pivoted, a sidestep, one palm to the elbow, another to the neck. The lanky boy crumpled to the ground with a choked grunt, curling up and coughing. The third boy backed up, arms raised. "Yo, man, chill. What are you?" The cafe froze. Maria's mouth was open. A delivery man on his scooter had stopped mid-bite with a sandwich in his hand. Even a dog tied to a post had gone silent, head tilted in awe. Mr. Lee adjusted his jacket. "You wanted to see if I mattered," he said calmly. "Now you know." The third boy turned and bolted, tripping over his own feet and scrambling away down the street. The first two groaned on the ground, stunned but conscious. Maria rushed over. "Mr. Lee, what was that?" He looked at her, face calm again. "Tai Chi," he said, then paused, with a touch of Wing Chun, "and maybe some Israeli Krav Maga." She blinked. "Are you serious?" "I trained soldiers once, long time ago. Thought I was done with that." A police car arrived 10 minutes later, but the crowd of witnesses told them everything. The teens had started it. Mr. Lee had only defended himself. The officers recognized him. One of them, "Officer Ramirez, step forward, Mr. Lee," he said with a respectful nod. "Still sharp, huh? I try." Mr. Lee said, then turned to Maria. "I think I'll have another coffee. This one's on me." Inside, the cafe buzzed with conversation. "Did you see that? He moved like he was in a movie. I thought he was just some retired librarian or something." A boy, maybe 12, came up to Mr. Lee with wide eyes. "Mister, can you teach me that, the stuff you did?" Mr. Lee gave the faintest smile. "It's not about fighting," he said. "It's about control of your body, your breath, and your fear." The boy nodded like he understood, though he probably didn't. Weeks passed, and Mr. Lee's bench no longer sat empty. People greeted him with respect. Some asked questions. Others just wanted to sit near him, as if his silence was a kind of strength they could absorb. One day, the first teenager, the one who slapped the cup, came back. His eye was still bruised. "Hey," he muttered, hands in his pockets, shuffling awkwardly. Mr. Lee looked up, said nothing. "I, um, the teen looked down. "I was a jerk. I know that. I didn't know you were, like special forces or whatever." Mr. Lee raised an eyebrow. "You don't need to know what someone's capable of to treat them with respect," he said. The boy looked down. "Yeah, I guess. I'm sorry, okay?" For a long moment, Mr. Lee said nothing. Then he reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a small rolled parchment. "Come to the park, Saturdays, sunrise. Bring no phone. Bring discipline." The boy took it like a sacred invitation. "I will." And he did, and others joined. A group of 6, then 12. Teenagers, some of them former bullies, some of them just curious, now gathering at sunrise to learn from a man who had once trained elite units in the mountains of Korea and deserts of the Middle East. They stretched. They learned balance, breath, patience, not just how to fight, but when not to. And under the rising sun, while the city yawned awake, a quiet old man in a simple jacket taught a new generation that strength wasn't in muscle, but in stillness, because sometimes the most dangerous man in the room is the one sitting quietly with his coffee. And if you try to bully him, you better be ready to learn a lesson that no school could ever teach, even if you have to learn it the hard way. Weeks turned into months. What began as a quiet gathering of a few awkward teens in the park had evolved into a disciplined morning ritual. No longer were the sessions filled with jokes or clumsy attempts to mimic martial arts movies. Now, at precisely 5:45 a.m., before the sky turned fully blue, young bodies lined up in silent rows across the dew-covered grass, barefoot, alert, ready. Mr. Lee walked among them with a slow, purposeful gait. His jacket never changed navy blue with a faint tear near the hem, a relic from some distant battlefield. His voice was calm but sharp, each word cutting through the cool morning air like the edge of a blade. "Strike not with anger," he said. "Strike with clarity." His demonstrations were short, almost effortless. A simple motion of the wrist, a shift in stance, a redirection of energy, and the largest boy in the group would fall, gently but undeniably. One morning, after a particularly intense session, the original boy, Marcus, stayed behind. "Sir," he said, wiping sweat from his forehead. "Can I ask you something personal?" Mr. Lee gave a nod. "Go ahead. What were you before all this?" "Before you came here," Mr. Lee's eyes softened. "I was many things," he said. "A son, a soldier, a protector, then a ghost." Marcus frowned. "A ghost, yes. After the last war, I came home, but part of me didn't. I saw things, did things, and when you carry those memories, you begin to disappear from normal life. So I sat on that bench, trying to remember how to be human again." Marcus nodded slowly, eyes glistening. "I think I get it. You will," Mr. Lee said, placing a hand on his shoulder. "In time." Meanwhile, word of the old master spread. At first, it was just among students' whispers in hallways. Instagram posts quickly deleted, clips blurred to avoid showing his face. But then, a local journalist caught wind of the story. She showed up one morning, camera slung around her neck, expecting a quirky piece about teenagers and Tai Chi. What she witnessed left her speechless. 15 boys and girls, in perfect unison, executing a breathing kata under the amber sunrise. No talking, no phones, just focus. Afterward, she approached Mr. Lee. "I'd love to do a piece about you," she said. "You built something incredible here." "I built nothing," Mr. Lee replied. "They chose to build themselves. I just opened the door." The article went viral. "The Ghost of the Park: How a Mysterious Old Man Transformed Teen Bullies into Warriors of Peace." Thousands shared it. Parents emailed. Schools called. Offers came in, speaking engagements, self-defense classes, even movie deals. Mr. Lee turned them all down. "I'm not a brand," he said simply. "I'm a man." But fame has a shadow. One afternoon, while walking home from the grocery store, Mr. Lee noticed a black SUV slowly trailing him. He ignored it at first until two men stepped out. One was tall, muscular, dressed in tactical gear. The other wore a suit, his expression unreadable. "Mr. Lee," the suited man said. "Or, should I say, Master Sergeant Daniel Lee, 3rd Battalion Recon, retired." Mr. Lee sighed. "You're 5 years late, we know," the man said. "We just didn't think we'd find you training kids in a park. What do you want?" "A threat," the man said bluntly. "His name is Viktor Novikov, former Spetsnaz Don arms dealer. He's in the city. We believe he's targeting your former team. 2 are already dead." "I buried my past," Mr. Lee said. The man held out a file. Photos, corpses. One of them, a woman with a scar on her cheek, made Mr. Lee flinch. "She saved my life," he muttered. "She was the best sniper we had," the man replied. "You trained her." Mr. Lee took the file. "I'll handle it," he said quietly. "No offense," the suited man said. "But you're older now." Mr. Lee's eyes narrowed. So were the boys in the cafe. The next week, training changed. Punches became sharper, techniques more aggressive. Marcus noticed first. "Sir, are we preparing for something?" Mr. Lee looked at him. "I am." Then came the night. A warehouse near the docks. Mr. Lee moved like shadow, silent, deadly, unrelenting. One guard choked unconscious. Another Daleg swept and disarmed. Then Victor, a giant of a man, covered in tattoos, holding a combat knife. "You look smaller in person," Victor said in a thick Russian accent. "You won't remember me," Mr. Lee replied. "But I remember everything. They fought. It was brutal. Bone against bone, knife swipes, elbow strikes. Mr. Lee was fast, but Victor was strong. But strength without discipline is a fire without shape." Mr. Lee ducked, spun, drove his palm into Victor's rib. Crack! The Russian roared, lunged only to be caught mid-stride by a counter kick that sent him crashing into a metal beam. It ended with Mr. Lee standing over him, breathing hard, knife at Victor's throat. "She was my student," he whispered. "You killed her. This is justice." Victor smirked through bloodied lips. "You won't do it. You're soft now." Mr. Lee stared, then dropped the knife. "No, I'm human again." Police arrested Victor minutes later. Mr. Lee walked home, bruised but calm. The next morning, he was back in the park. Marcus ran up. "Where were you?" "Handling ghosts," Mr. Lee said. "They won't bother us again." Marcus paused. "You're hurt." Scars fade. Discipline remains. As weeks passed, new faces joined the group. Girls, troubled teens, even parents. A city once known for early morning chaos now woke to silence and synchronized movement. The mayor gave Mr. Lee a medal. He never wore it. And one evening, under the setting sun, Maria from the cafe asked him, "Do you ever miss it? The soldier's life?" Mr. Lee looked at the park at children practicing peace. "No," he said, "because I brought the best of it with me." "Which part was that?" "The part where you protect those who can't protect themselves." She smiled. "Still want your coffee black?" Mr. Lee nodded. "Always." And in that small corner of the world, between park benches and whispered legends, people knew the quiet old man wasn't just someone to respect, he was someone to follow. Because sometimes the hero you need doesn't wear a cape. He just drinks his coffee alone until the day you slap it out of his hands. And then you learn what real power looks like. The story of Mr. Lee, the quiet old man who took down bullies with nothing but precision and discipline, refused to fade. It echoed through every school hallway, every youth center, every street where trouble used to linger like smog. His morning classes swelled beyond what the park could hold. By spring, dozens of teens lined up before dawn, eager to train. They came with different stories. Some were former bullies. Some were broken by life. Others simply lost and looking for a compass. But they all found one in him. One day, a local school invited Mr. Lee to speak. It was Marcus who stood beside him on the auditorium stage. No longer the arrogant punk who had once tried to mock an old man, but a transformed leader, confident, respectful, focused. Mr. Lee stepped forward, looking at hundreds of restless students packed into the room. He said nothing at first, just looked. The silence stretched. Whispers stopped. Then he spoke. Voice low but firm. I am not here to inspire you. I am not here to entertain you. I'm here to warn you. He let the words settle like dust. Every one of you will face battles. Not all of them will be with fists. Most of them will be with fear, pain, doubt, and sometimes your own reflection. I faced them all. I lost some, I won others, but I'm still standing because I trained not just my body, but my mind, my heart. A hand shot up in the crowd. Did you really beat up like 3 kids at once? Laughter. Mr. Lee's eyes narrowed. No, I beat 3 cowards. There's a difference. The laughter died. Another voice. How do we become strong like you? He paused, then said, you don't need to be strong like me. Be strong like you. And it starts by respecting the weakest person in the room. The students fell quiet again afterward as the auditorium emptied. Marcus turned to Mr. Lee. They listen to you. They listen because they sense truth, Mr. Lee replied. And truth has no age. Later that week, a new face appeared in the park. A girl named Aliyah, 16, hardened eyes, silent. She stood at the edge of the group, arms crossed. Mr. Lee approached her. You want to join? She shrugged. Why are you here? He asked. She hesitated. I got in a fight, almost expelled. The principal said I should come here. That's not why you're really here. She looked at him, then away. My brother used to come. Said you changed him. He died last month. Wrong place, wrong time. Mr. Lee nodded slowly. Then we train. For him, and for you. She joined the next day, one morning, while the group practiced silent forms. A commotion broke out near the basketball courts. 3 masked men attempted to mug a jogger, shoving him violently to the ground. Mr. Lee didn't yell. He didn't run. He simply walked. The trainees paused as they saw him approach the chaos. The first mugger swung at him with a chain. Mr. Lee ducked, stepped in, locked the man's elbow, and disarmed him in one fluid motion. The second lunged. A palm strike to the chest sent him flying backward. The third pulled a knife. But Aliyah stepped forward before Mr. Lee could move. Her stance was solid, her eyes steady. The man laughed and lunged, but she sidestepped, locked his wrist, twisted, and dropped him. He screamed. The knife hit the grass. Police arrived minutes later. And by then, all 3 attackers were restrained. The jogger, shaken but unharmed, stared at Mr. Lee in disbelief. You're not just a man, he said. You're something else. Mr. Lee glanced at Aliyah. No, he said. I'm a teacher. And she's the future. That clip went viral. Old man and teenage girl take down muggers in public park hit over 10 million views in 2 days. Interview requests poured in. Talk shows. Podcasts. A major streaming service even offered a documentary deal. Marcus, now managing the social media page for their growing community, showed Mr. Lee the inbox. You want me to reply to these? No. But some of them, Mr. Lee repeated. We don't teach for views, we teach for change. Marcus smiled. You really hate fame, huh? Mr. Lee shook his head. I don't hate it, I just don't need it. But change couldn't be stopped. The city council approached him with a proposal. Turn the training into an official youth program. Fund it. Build a center. Train instructors. Expand. I'm not building an empire, Mr. Lee said. You're already building a legacy, the mayor replied. Let us help. After weeks of thought, he agreed on one condition: no branding, no sponsors, no politics. The Center for Inner Strength opened 4 months later. A single-story, wood-paneled building beside the park, with floor-to-ceiling windows, bamboo floors, and walls lined with quotes not from generals or athletes, but from students who trained under him. Marcus became the head instructor. Aliyah taught the new girls. And Mr. Lee, he came every morning, still in his jacket, still quiet. One winter afternoon, as snowflakes drifted onto the roof of the center, Marcus sat beside him on the bench. You ever think about retiring for real, Mr. Lee looked at the trees. When I see a generation that doesn't need to be reminded what respect is, then maybe, Marcus chuckled. So never. Uh, Mr. Lee smiled faintly. Hope lives in effort, not in ease. They sat in silence, watching as kids inside the center practiced their forms, their breath visible in the cold air. A few years later, a young boy named Leo, 8 years old, shy, stuttering, approached Mr. Lee with wide eyes and a crumpled photo in his hand. "This was my grandpa," he whispered. "He said you trained him before he died, said you saved him." Mr. Lee took the photo. It was Marcus, older, wiser, smiling in uniform. Mr. Lee's eyes filled for the first time in decades. He placed a hand on Leo's shoulder. "Then let's make sure he lives through you." And so the cycle continued. Because some stories don't end. They echo through lives changed, fists unraised, and battles that never had to be fought because someone once taught a bully that true strength doesn't come from dominance, but from dignity. And it all started with a cup of coffee, a quiet bench, and an old man who reminded the world that the body may age, but honor never will. As the years passed, the legend of Mr. Lee stretched far beyond their city. His name became something more than just a name. It became a symbol, not of violence, but of discipline, not of fighting, but of restraint. Young people from all over the country began traveling to the Center for Inner Strength, hoping to catch even one session with the elusive master. Some came with trauma, others with rage, but none of them left the same. Even the police department quietly began recommending troubled youth to the center, bypassing formal punishments and offering training instead, street diversion. They called it, Mr. Lee just called it redemption. One spring, a filmmaker named Darren Cho, a Korean-American documentarian known for hard-hitting social features, approached Mr. Lee in person. "I'm not here to exploit you," Darren said. "I'm here because your story changed my brother's life. He was one of the first kids you trained. He was going down a bad path. Now he's a teacher." Mr. Lee didn't speak. "I just want to tell your story properly, not viral fluff, not hero worship, real, raw truth." Mr. Lee looked at him, his expression unreadable. "Truth is earned, not recorded," he said. "I'll earn it," Darren promised. Over the next year, Darren embedded himself in the center. He lived nearby, trained alongside the students, filmed without fanfare. He captured the quiet mornings, the sweat, the stillness, the moments of breakthrough when a hardened youth broke down crying after their first moment of inner peace. And slowly, Mr. Lee opened up. On camera, for the first time, he spoke of his past. "I was 15 when I joined the underground resistance against occupation," he said, eyes distant. "Later, the military gave me skills, but war gave me ghosts. I watched friends die. I took lives I still remember in my sleep." He paused, but the worst part was coming home, and not knowing who I was without the fight. He looked directly at the lens, until 3 boys slapped a coffee cup out of my hand. That was the title of Darren's documentary. The Man Behind the Coffee Cup. It debuted at Sundance. Standing ovation. Tears. Distributors begged for deals, but Mr. Lee refused all profit. "All proceeds go to the center," he said, "and to any place teaching peace." He didn't care for fame, but he understood impact. The center received more funding, more volunteers. Chapters opened in other cities. Other veterans, moved by Mr. Lee's journey, stepped forward to teach not how to fight, but how to heal through movement, breath, and choice. Then came the final test. It wasn't a battle. It was illness. Mr. Lee, now in his late 70s, began to slow. His movements, once fluid as water, grew stiffer. His breath, shorter. But he still arrived at the park every morning. One crisp autumn day, as leaves fell like golden rain around him, he called Marcus, Aaliyah, and a few others to the old bench. "I'm stepping back," he said. Silence. But Marcus began. Mr. Lee raised a hand. "I've given you the form, the breath, the path. Now walk it on your own." Aaliyah's eyes welled up. But we're not you. No, he said gently. You're better, because you've seen both worlds, and you chose peace. In the months that followed, Mr. Lee visited less frequently, eventually only once a week, then once a month. But his presence never left. Photos of him, always candid, always calm, lined the walls of the center, not out of worship, but as a reminder of where it all began, of who reminded them that an old man on a bench could shake the very soul of a city. The final day he visited, he sat quietly under the same tree. Leo, now 15, approached. Master Lee, he said softly, they say you were the strongest man alive. Mr. Lee smiled faintly. No, he replied. Strength is what you do with what you feel. It's what you withhold, not what you unleash. Leo sat beside him. You think I'm ready? Mr. Lee turned to him. Close your eyes, he said. Leo obeyed. Breathe. He did. Mr. Lee nodded. Then you're ready. And that was the last time Mr. Lee visited the park. He passed away quietly that winter. No headlines, no spectacle, just a handwritten note left for Marcus. When the breath is steady, the soul is unshaken. Keep training, keep teaching. We do not fade, we echo. DL. His funeral was modest. No military honors, just students, past and present, lined up in rows under gray skies, performing one final kata in perfect silence. That footage would become the closing scene of Darren Cho's documentary sequel, We Echo, The Legacy of Daniel Lee. It won global awards, but more importantly, it planted centers in 37 countries. Years later, when a group of would-be bullies in another city cornered an old man walking with groceries, they never expected what came next. He didn't fight, but 3 teenagers stepped between them. They didn't yell. They simply stood firm. One of them looked the leader in the eye and said, You have no idea who you're disrespecting. Not him, but yourself. And they walked the old man home. He didn't say much, just smiled and whispered, You've been trained well, because Daniel Lee never truly left. He lived in every hand that hesitated instead of hitting, every breath taken before a harsh word, every teen who looked inward before lashing outward, all because one man written off, mocked, dismissed, showed the world that the most dangerous warrior is the one who chooses peace. And in doing so, he didn't just win a fight. He built an army of restraint. And that army, still growing, years passed. And though the world moved on, as it always does, the legacy of Mr. Daniel Lee only deepened. His story became a rite of passage. In the training halls of the Center for Inner Strength, new students were taught not just stances and forms, but the story, the exact details passed down with precision. 3 boys, 1 bench, a coffee cup, a quiet man who chose not to break them but to awaken them. Each instructor, many of them former students, carried a part of him. They'd start every class the same way, not with a shout, but with a breath. 3 deep inhalations, 3 exhalations, in, out, control, calm, focus. Then a bow, not to a god, not to a flag, but to a small photograph on the wall. Mr. Lee Diem, mid-step, hand behind his back, eyes watching the horizon. Among those instructors was Aaliyah, now in her 30s, confident, graceful, the director of the original center. She bore a tattoo on her wrist, 3 black lines, one for her past, one for her transformation, and one for him. She taught more than just movement. She taught broken girls how to rebuild themselves. She taught boys to unlearn anger. She taught silence as power. And she never stopped telling the story. One day, a documentary crew from Tokyo came to film the center. Their lead interviewer, Midori Tanaka, sat with Aaliyah in the middle of the hall, surrounded by barefoot students. What would you say, Midori asked gently, was Mr. Lee's greatest achievement? Aaliyah looked around at the students, all so different in color, shape, and story. Then she looked into the camera. He didn't raise fighters, she said. He raised guardians, guardians of themselves, of others, of the line between chaos and discipline. Midori nodded. Do you think he knew the kind of movement he was starting? Aaliyah smiled. No, that's what made him so powerful. He wasn't trying to be a hero. He just refused to be a victim. Meanwhile, Marcus, now a father of two and head of the international program, traveled the world planting seeds, centers in favelas in Brazil, youth camps in South Africa, programs inside war zones where children had forgotten what peace even looked like. Wherever he went, he carried one thing in his wallet, the parchment Mr. Lee had once given him. Come to the park. Saturday. Sunrise. No phone. Bring discipline. He laminated it. He showed it to every student who wanted to quit. One day, in the outskirts of a crumbling neighborhood in Detroit, Marcus stepped into an alley where a group of teens had cornered a homeless man, mocking him. He didn't shout. He didn't threaten. He walked right up, placed himself between them and the man, and said calmly, "You ever hear the story of the man on the bench?" One of the teens rolled his eyes. What? And Marcus, without hesitation, sat down on the curb and began to tell them exactly as it happened, detail by detail. The hand-to-hand fight, the transformation, the discipline, the center. The world that changed because three punks made one mistake. They didn't hit him, they didn't run, they listened. And when he finished, the tallest one said quietly, "You think we could learn that?" Marcus stood. "You already have," he said. "The first lesson is knowing when to stop." That alley became a training ground. No mats, no uniforms, just concrete, cracked walls, and hope. Back in their hometown, the original park was declared a historic site. The city renamed it Daniel Lee Peace Park. Not for war, not for martial arts, for peace. At its center stood a bronze statue, simple, life-size, not of Mr. Lee in a dramatic pose, but exactly how he was remembered best, sitting on the bench, jacket loose, hands resting, eyes far away. Children often climbed onto his lap. Tourists took selfies, but the locals, they came at dawn. They came with breath, with purpose. And once a year, on the anniversary of that first confrontation, thousands gathered in the park before sunrise. No speeches, no applause, just silence, then a unified kata, slow, controlled, graceful. And afterward, candles were lit, forming a ring around the bench. In that stillness, old students would find one another, some now police officers, others doctors, others teachers, all bound by one man who showed them a better way. Even Darren Cho, the filmmaker, now a father himself, returned every year with his daughter. "Daddy," she once asked, watching the silent movements, "why is everyone so quiet?" He knelt beside her. "Because we're listening," he said. "To what?" "To the echo." And in that quiet moment, under the pink hue of morning light, it was as if Daniel Lee himself was still there, watching over them, not as a warrior, not as a master, but as a man who changed the world by choosing not to strike, but to stand. A final story began to circulate. Many years later, a tale passed around like folklore, but too specific to be fake. An old man, anonymous, hooded, face hidden, stopped a mugging in an underground subway station in Seoul. No video, just eyewitnesses. The attackers were disarmed within seconds. Not hurt, just stopped. The old man walked away before police arrived. When asked who he was, a witness claimed he'd heard one phrase, whispered in Korean, before the man vanished up the stairs: "Discipline is louder than anger." No one knows if it was real. But across the globe, instructors nodded when they heard the tale, because it didn't matter if it was Mr. Lee or someone trained in his way. What mattered was that the ripple continued, and it would continue. As long as there were benches, as long as there were bullies, as long as there were people willing to choose the harder path, not of retaliation, but of restraint. Because some battles are fought with fists, but the greatest victories, they're won in silence, with breath, with honor, and with the memory of a man who reminded the world that you don't need to raise your voice or your hand to change everything, just your standard.